Hi, I'm Dong Shong. Welcome to Digging to China, where we explore China in depth to reveal unique perspectives. Over the past few days, the entire Chinese-speaking world has been fixated on one meeting, the Private Entrepreneurs Symposium, personally convened by Xi. From the attendees' matching outfits to the seating arrangements, every tiny detail has been scrutinized. But honestly, the whole thing feels like a scene straight out of the Qing dynasty. Back then, when people were summoned to the capital to meet the emperor, they had to burn incense, fast, bathe, and dress properly, just to avoid committing a breach of etiquette in the imperial court. During the meeting, Yu Renrong, the boss of Will Semiconductor, found himself in trouble for sitting improperly. His lack of decorum in front of Xi actually caused his company's stock to plummet. Now tell me, doesn't this feel just like the Qing dynasty all over again? Look at the US. Elon Musk met the president while holding his child, yet Tesla stock didn't nosedive because of it. That's why this so-called Private Entrepreneurs Symposium is nothing short of ironic. On the surface, it seems to encourage the development of private enterprises. But in reality, these so-called private businesses are just servants. If you don't obey, you might be the star of the show today, but tomorrow you could be hanging from a streetlight. You must constantly prove your usefulness to the system. Otherwise, there's no place for you here. For Xi, 2025 is a special year. 10 years ago, he personally launched the Made in China 2025 Grand Plan. And now it's time for a progress report. That's the real reason behind this symposium. It's all about saving face, showcasing the supposed success of Made in China 2025. But has it really been a success? Today, we are going to expose the truth and see just how much of the plan's goals have actually been achieved. At the start of this year, did you notice how the entire country seemed to be offering tributes to Xi's 2025 vision? Let's start with the stock market, which everyone is most concerned about. Since the beginning of the year, Chinese stocks listed in the US have surged. Alibaba announced a collaboration with Apple, and its stock has already jumped over 60%. SEC filings revealed that Wall Street had heavily invested in Alibaba by the end of last year, meaning they had access to insider information long before the public did. Meanwhile, the Hong Kong stock market has also soared, largely due to the sudden emergence of DeepSeek, which boosted the entire tech sector. But the speculative capital driving this surge is mostly from mainland China, making it look like a lot like Beijing orchestrating the hype. Then there is the central bank's recent epic liquidity injection. While there were technical reasons like relaxed exchange rate assessments, the timing suggests a political agenda. China needed good-looking financial data for the new year. Suddenly, it felt like the entire Chinese financial market had coordinated to put on a grand spectacle of the rise of the East. And it's not just the financial markets. Even the film industry has jumped in, producing Ne Zha 2, seemingly tailor-made for Xi. The line, "My fate is determined by me, not by the heavens," perfectly echoes his own mindset. 10 years ago, when he launched Made in China 2025, wasn't it driven by that same ambition to surpass the US? Every time I revisit Xi's archives, I find endless amusement. Let's rewind to 10 years ago. On May 8, 2015, China's State Council issued the Made in China 2025 document, clearly stating that China no longer wanted to be the world's factory, making meager profits from low-end manufacturing. The goal was to become a true manufacturing powerhouse with its own global brands, shifting towards intelligent, high-end, and green manufacturing. By 2025, China was supposed to complete this transformation from a manufacturing giant to a manufacturing innovator. This has been Xi's biggest dream over the past decade. But why did he introduce this plan in 2015? First, after 2 decades of strategic patience under Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao, Xi ascended to power and found the state coffers full, the national wealth abundant. Naturally, his ambition soared. He was determined to make his mark. Second, the global manufacturing landscape was shifting. The US had already begun its reshoring efforts, aiming to revive domestic manufacturing and reduce reliance on China's supply chain. Meanwhile, Germany and Japan were also adjusting their industrial policies, all vying for dominance in high-end manufacturing. At the same time, China's low-end manufacturing sector was facing rising competition. Vietnam and India, with even cheaper labor, had begun absorbing some of China's manufacturing business. From a rational perspective, China did need to upgrade its industry. High-end manufacturing was a battle it couldn't afford to lose. Third, China itself was experiencing serious economic challenges. Growth was slowing, raising concerns about the middle-income trap. On top of that, the population dividend was vanishing, with an aging society posing a massive future burden. Without the technological innovation to boost productivity, the financial strain of elderly care would be crushing. So, upgrading the manufacturing sector was the right idea. But Xi's approach to implementation and his evaluation standards were completely wrong. And the most iconic part, just 1 month after Made in China 2025 was launched in May, China's stock market crashed in June. That year, China lost $1 trillion in foreign reserves. Xi's grand ambitions slapped in the face hard. Looking back, maybe the anti-Xi Jinping faction saw things more clearly than we did. They realized early on that he was determined to shake things up, to compete directly with the US, completely abandoning Deng Xiaoping's strategy of hiding strength and biding time. Instead, he put China right in America's crosshairs. Seeing where this was headed, they cashed out and took off with $1 trillion in foreign exchange reserves. In hindsight, maybe they had the right idea. Meanwhile, the rest of us only figured out years later that Xi Jinping thinks like an elementary school student. Originally, he had a well-planned strategy, and the national treasury had enough money to support it. Then a stock market crashed, wiped out $1 trillion from state reserves. But by that point, Made in China 2025 had already been announced. There was no turning back. He had no choice but to push forward. That's why he launched the Belt and Road Initiative worldwide, and why packs of wolf warriors started running wild on the international stage. Thinking back now, wasn't all of this a sign of insecurity? The more uncertain he felt, the more aggressive he had to appear. Now, 10 years have passed. How much of the original plan has actually been achieved? Last year, the South China Morning Post compiled all the data and concluded that China had completed 86% of its goals in 10 key sectors, declaring yet another victory over the US. But is that really the case? Let's go back to the original State Council documents and see what those 10 sectors were. Next generation information technology, high-end CNC machine tools and robotics, aerospace equipment, marine engineering and high-tech ships, advanced rail transportation, energy saving and new energy vehicles, power equipment, agricultural machinery, new materials, and biomedicine. But here's the problem. Those documents don't contain many clear assessment criteria. Instead, they are filled with vague statements like market share should see a significant increase, reliance on foreign technology should decline significantly, and the key equipment should reach world-leading levels. How do you measure any of this? What exactly does significant increase mean? How much does something need to decline significantly? What does notably enhanced actually look like? None of it is clearly defined, making it impossible to say for sure how much of Made in China 2025 has actually been achieved. So far, only electric vehicle sales have met a clear, measurable standard. As for the rest, well, look around. To be fair, industries like shipbuilding, agricultural machinery, and CNC machine tools have made some progress, but have they really hit the targets? And here is the contradiction. If China's manufacturing sector had truly upgraded, the economy should have strengthened. But what actually happened? Unemployment surged, capital fled, incomes fell, consumption declined, and the economy weakened. Yet some still insist that the Made in China 2025 was a great success. Isn't that just ridiculous? If we look at economic fundamentals, China's manufacturing upgrade simply doesn't add up. But that doesn't stop Xi Jinping from staging performances to declare victory. That's why, at the beginning of this year, we saw the Private Entrepreneurs Symposium. And look at the companies that were invited. Electric vehicles, semiconductors, AI robotics, and industries tied to Made in China 2025. But where were companies like Baidu and JD.com? They weren't invited because their businesses aren't in high-tech manufacturing. This wasn't a real discussion about economic policy. It was a victory celebration for Xi Jinping's grand vision. Only companies that could provide good propaganda were allowed to participate. The rest was sidelined. Around the same time, China's AI company DeepSeek gained attention, making many believe that China and the US were now evenly matched in AI. But in reality, China lacks a domestic high-end consumer market anywhere near the scale of the US, making it incredibly difficult for AI companies to turn a profit. That's why DeepSeek has had to go with a budget AI model, basically an AI version of Temu. And this exposes China's biggest manufacturing weakness: market, market, market. For China's electric vehicle industry to be profitable, it has to flood overseas markets. But this ends up crushing local industries in other countries. That's why even pro-China European nations impose high tariffs on Chinese EVs. The same thing happened with China's solar industry. It wiped out the manufacturers in the US and Europe, leading to more tariffs. This is why, no matter how much Europe criticizes the US, it will never become a close ally of China. The US has a massive consumer market. Europe can complain about Washington while still making money there, but with China, the only thing you get is being taken advantage of. Nobody is willing to risk their own economy for Beijing. And sure enough, right after Xi Jinping wrapped up his big meeting, the A-share market tanked. Investors saw through the act. There was no real goodwill toward private businesses. It was just another staged performance for the China Rising narrative. First, capital must not overstep its boundaries. Jack Ma's public criticism of China's financial system was a step too far, so he was punished. Second, capital must serve the regime. When Xi Jinping set the Made in China 2025 agenda, private businesses had to align with it. That's what serving the regime means. If you succeed, it's because of Xi Jinping's leadership, and you must credit him. If you fail, it's your own fault for being incompetent. In China, if you want to be a capitalist, you need to understand this. And when the time comes, you must be prepared to hand over your company to the state. That's what Chinese-style private enterprises really mean. This year, China is trying to showcase its manufacturing strengths. The Ant Group IPO issue is expected to be resolved, and a wave of tech companies will get the green light for listing. The securities regulator even announced that IPOs in the 10 strategic industries of Made in China 2025 will all be approved, feeding the state propaganda machine with new success stories. Xi Jinping will have plenty to boast about this year, but as investors, we need to stay clear-headed. With so many new IPOs flooding the A-share market, massive amounts of liquidity will be drained. If you are still investing in A shares, at the very least, keep that in mind. Thank you so much for watching. If you find this video helpful, please like it, drop a comment below, and hit the subscribe button right here. It really helps YouTube suggest my video to others. I'll be back with more content soon. Until then, be well.